Behind the Dish is sponsored by DBAT. Check out dbat.net for baseball and softball products, franchise information, and to find a location near you. And now your host, John Piper.
We are broadcasting from the 76th Annual ABCA Convention in Nashville. I would like to welcome Tyson Blaser from the New York Yankees organization to Behind the Dish. How you doing, Tyson?
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me on.
Man, it was awesome. We spent about 15 minutes kind of preparing for the podcast, and I can tell you're excited about just being here. It's your first ABCA.
It's my first ABCA. I've been seeing the hype for a few years, and finally got the opportunity to come down, and it is awesome. So anybody that hasn't been out there, it is worth the trip.
A little plug for the American Baseball Coaches Association. We're gracious to be here. This is my third ABCA, and I definitely plan on making many, many more. So hope to see you next year in Washington, D.C.
Sure.
You spoke this morning to the youth coaches about catching, and I was a little intrigued. Your talk was titled The 15-Minute Catcher. Is that kind of like the 4-hour work week? You condense. Tell us a little bit about this 15-minute catcher.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of thought the title was fairly catchy. So the 15-minute catcher, I guess the basis is how do we work in 15 minutes of catching time into youth practices? I was a high school coach for a couple years, and I wasn't very good at putting it into our own practices. So really trying to figure out how we can just get that time and put it toward the catchers, because just any time that we can work that 15 minutes, we're getting better as catchers. So that's where the 15-minute catcher came from.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I know during practices, especially at that youth level, high school level, you know, you're a player, we'll talk about that in a minute, but a lot of focus is put on hitting, pitching, maybe base running, and sometimes the catchers are just there to grab the balls from the infielders. You know, so you're spot on there.
Yeah,
you might be onto something.
It's neglected. It really is, and I know it is a smaller position, so you don't have a lot of guys that are doing it, but you can find time to fit it in.
The catcher position is probably the toughest position on the field. I think you'd probably agree with that since you played the position. You know, you're involved in every single play. A lot of times the coach on the field. You played the position at a high level, both collegiately and professionally. What did you like best about catching?
I loved that everybody on that field was looking at you. All eyes on defense are looking to home plate, and that's where you are. So you have the ability to affect your entire team with your body language, with your voice, with your actions. And I absolutely loved having my finger on the pulse of the game and how things were going.
You were recognized in 2006 as the Quad Cities Male Athlete of the Year. I got a chance to visit with your wife, Holly, earlier. And, boy, that's awesome you're able to bring her along. And she gets to see all this baseball. And, you know, she's in for a new adventure as, you know, we'll talk about it here in a minute as you're part of the Yankees organization coaching staff. But she seems to be excited about it. She's on board with everything you got going on.
Yeah, she's a baseball wife. We've been together since high school, so I don't think we've spent a summer together. Well, since I was in high school, playing summer ball and then into college. So she understands it. She supports it. Awesome. So it's kind of good for her to see this side of it too, and she sees my excitement.
Now back to that award, you know, High School Athlete of the Year. I know the Quad Cities is a very large, between I think obviously 4 cities, pretty large metropolitan area. Did you play other sports besides baseball?
Yes, it did. So it's called the Quad City area, Iowa, Illinois, right on the border of Mississippi. But technically there's actually 5 cities, so don't look too far into it. But yeah, I played all 3 of the major sports, you could say. I played football, basketball, and baseball. Up north in Illinois, at least, we played spring baseball, so you could play football in the fall, basketball in the winter, and then baseball in the spring. So I was able to do all 3, and I loved it. That's what I love about being up north and having 4 different seasons in terms of, you know, getting cold and warm and winter and fall and spring, and it allows you to play different sports.
Well, in talking to a lot of coaches at the college level, they like that high school player that's played multiple sports because they know there's some upside. You know, they don't get burned out. They don't overuse certain muscles. And You played with a lot of great players. Would you say a lot of them played multi-sports in high school, or did a lot of them start to focus either on baseball or football, your experience?
Yeah, from my experience, a lot of guys I played with, a lot of guys that are very good at what they do were athletes. And if you're an athlete in high school, a lot of times you're playing at least 2 sports. So, yeah, a lot of the good players that I had played with definitely were multi-sport athletes.
Coming up and, prior to high school and the high school level, being a good athlete, did you play some other positions other than catcher?
Yeah, and I encourage other guys to do the same. I played third base a little bit, played a little bit of outfield, got on the mound and threw a little bit. And then I did the same thing in college. I played some outfield in college as well as caught. So I think the more diversified you can be, speaks to your athleticism, and at the next level, at the big league level, even at the college level, guys love big, strong guys that can be athletic, and I think that can be understated.
To prepare for the mental toughness that it takes to play baseball at the highest level, what did you do as an athlete in the off season to prepare yourself? Let's talk about high school, college. You played at Iowa and also in the Yankees organization. How did you prepare as a player for each upcoming season?
So I think it evolved. So when I was in high school, I was playing 3 different sports, and so it was actually a mental break from that sport. So football's going on, I got a mental break from the basketball and the baseball. So it actually was a time that I could completely remove myself from it, and I think sometimes at the younger levels, they need that time to reset a little bit. It can become a little bit stressful. I'm only playing one sport, and I got to make it, and I got to get to college, and I got to do this and that. So I think being able to allow yourself some time to step away and playing different sports allowed me to do that. And now in college, I was specifically on the baseball side of things, and my mental approach began in the summer, going out playing summer ball, but then getting into school again in the fall, of really trying to set the tone for what I wanted to do personally, as long as with our team, and doing a lot of visualization. Our coaching staff at that time was big on seeing things in your mind, taking mental reps, and I've taken that into the pro ball side of it. So just always preparing yourself, being ready for your name to be called, and then when that time does come, you've had the mental reps, you've had the mental preparation, you've done the mental reps, sitting on your couch in between commercials of the football game. So now you're ready to go.
Having a good visualization of what you need to do is important. Now, talk to us a little bit about the transition from high school, where you were, if not the best, one of the best players in that whole Quad Cities area, to Iowa Hawkeyes, where now all of a sudden you're the low man on the totem pole. You're starting off as a freshman again. Was that intimidating at all, the transition from high school to college?
No, it wasn't intimidating. It was an eye-opener. I got there, and I think I had never had to struggle before, and I felt like I was going to step right in. I was going to be able to catch. I was going to be able to play. I was going to be the guy, and that wasn't the case. We had a couple good catchers in front of me. One ended up getting drafted, played up to AAA with the A's, and that was a lot to take in and digest, and I didn't make some of our trips early.
Probably the first time in your career that you weren't on the field.
100% it was, and I did struggle with that my freshman year. I didn't handle it well, probably the way I should, and it was a really good learning curve for me, and it could have gone one of two ways, and I chose to kind of embrace it after I pouted for a while, and then figured out how can I get better.
Be the best teammate that you can be is a great lesson. A lot of players, especially in today's social media world, if they're not the guy, they want to just transfer immediately or maybe take a step back and go JUCO and open up their options. So I applaud you, and it's a great message to just stick with it. You got some cards dealt to you that maybe you didn't like, but you stuck with it, and it turned out well. You ended up getting your degree at Iowa. You were there for 5 years. You had 1 year you had the redshirt, I believe.
Yes, they were redshirted. Mm-hmm.
And, you got the whole college experience. And then you thought your playing days were over, and you get a call from the Yankees organization just kind of out of the blue that they needed a catcher. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was done. I was working at my mom's office one summer right after we had finished my last year of eligibility, and I was pushing papers and just trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do with my life. I had just proposed to my now fiance, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to go back and finish up my student teaching and then go right into the teaching side of things. And out of the blue, got a phone call, said, hey, we're short on some catchers. And this was 2 weeks after the draft even. And they said, come down to Tampa. Here's a plane ticket. I said, okay, let's do it.
Had you had any dialogue at all with any agents or anybody in Major League Baseball up until that phone call from the Yankees?
No. My junior year, I had some interest going into my junior year quite a bit. I had a couple good summers. Got hurt, lost my entire junior year. That's where the medical redshirt came in. And then just kind of the interest was gone. And so I was fully ready to go home and go into high school coaching and teaching.
So it sounded like you worked your tail off. You had to rehab, get healthy again, had a solid senior year, and that got someone's attention to initiate that phone call. But then you have to start over again, at the bottom of the totem pole in the New York Yankees organization. Was that really like deer in the headlights when you showed up at the Yankees? Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was. I showed up at the complex, and I went through a couple of physicals. It was later in the day. They said, hey, just go out there and sit in the stands. You can, watch what's going on. They were doing an inter-squad, and they had a wiry Dominican kid, and he couldn't have been more than 150 pounds. And I see him hit a ball dead center over a batter's eye about 20 feet up, and it just kind of disappeared. And I was like, holy cow. This kid's, probably 17 years old and 155 pounds soaking wet and hit a ball farther than I could hit a ball at that point. And it was like, what am I getting into?
Yeah, any idea how they create that much bat speed, at that size?
Yeah, they grow up doing it and trying to move the bat at an incredible rate of speed and impact the baseball and trying to hit the ball as hard as they possibly can. And so that's something I think we don't necessarily do as much on in the United States is put that kind of training into it. It's more of a controlled environment where they're like thrown into it and they're expected to put out results, and they do a pretty good job of it.
Now, you spent 4 years as a player in the Yankees organization. What were some of the ups and downs of your professional career?
Yeah, so I had a little bit of success my very first year, and some injuries to other players afforded me an opportunity to go from our rookie ball team to finish with our high A team in Tampa, where I started the next year, and I really, really, really played well, hit the ball well, but ended the year with a broken hand and did some shoulder MRI, and I also had a torn labrum, so rehabbed all winter again, got ready for it, got ready for my next season, got there, was feeling pretty good about it, had made the AA team, and I was going to be going to AA in the 8th inning of our last spring training game. I was leaving later that day. I got ran into in an inter-squad game at a home plate and slightly tore the same thumb I had torn in college. So I missed about 2 months, and I came back and, that spot was gone.
Hey, playing the catcher position, it's a physically demanding position. Yep. Injuries are part of the game. Now, there's a difference between being hurt and injured. Obviously, you got some injuries that prevented you from getting back on the field. Did you have to play through a lot of pain just to try to prove yourself and stay on the field? If you were not visible to the coaching staff, that may impact the decisions they were making long-term as a Yankee?
Especially being a lower prospect. I use the word prospect very lightly. I was afforded the opportunity to be more or less free agent signed, and I knew I had to be on the field. So there was days that couldn't quite get my shoulder up where it needed to be, and I had to get there early and really put in the work and the training table to make sure I could play that night, and maybe if you tweak something here or there, you had to go through it because you had to be on the field, because if not, you may lose your spot, which ended up happening to me, but I couldn't get on the field because I couldn't play physically at that point.
Well, hey, playing college ball is tough to do, and then to play 4 years professionally, man, hats off to you. Congratulations. It took a lot of hard work and determination, a lot of grit that our audience can learn from because it's not easy, right?
Oh, it's not.
A lot of people quit the game because it's tough, and we talk about it all the time. It's a game of failure and perseverance, and it teaches you some life lessons. And after your playing days were over, you decide, hey, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to teach and coach, and you become a high school baseball coach, which, man, I know you're torn between that because I can tell you'd be a great mentor to young men, and you're still going to be able to do that in the Yankees organization. But talk to us a little bit about how that decision came, and you were probably thinking about other job opportunities at the time, and but you go into coaching. Talk to us about that transition.
So when I got released, it was actually a blessing in disguise. I was trying to hold on and see what I was going to be able to do after my playing days and try to slide into some coaching. Wasn't afforded that opportunity. I went home. My wife was pregnant at the time with our first child, and it was a blessing. I got to be home. I got to go through that whole process with her, and realizing pretty quick that I need to be able to support for my family. Slid into the high school teaching role and the coaching role, and I loved it. I love teaching kids and being able to give back and develop these guys. And when the Yankees had called in 17, it was in January, late in the process, we were about 2-3 weeks away from our tryouts for our high school season coming up, and that was going into my second year, and it was really, really tough to leave those kids, but had to take the opportunity.
Yeah, it must have been rewarding being able to work with 15 to 18-year-old kids. There's a retired Texas coach right over here that spent 30-plus years doing it, and he can tell you.
God bless him.
Yeah. Very rewarding, and there were times where there's a reason why he retired when he did as well, politics and other challenges that get you outside the classroom. But talk to us a little bit about the impact you were able to have just in that one season with some of those high school kids.
Yeah, that's why you do it. So I've had one individual, and when I left, he said, I really appreciate it. You taught me how to be a better man. That was a question. That was a text message I had received, and that makes it worth it, right? I've got a couple guys that have called for advice on their playing and life, where to go, and that was only a year and a half of being there. So that's awesome. I got kids that are still trying to play. I was hitting with one. He was just back on break. So in a year and a half, being able to connect with those guys and create those relationships, that's what it's about. That's what it's about.
I have a middle school coach at, middle school I could still play basketball. I was tall enough. And football in Lexington, Kentucky. And I just found out he moved to North Texas a year ago. And we've been connecting through social media. And me and another guy I played high school sports with lives in the area. We're going to go by and see him. So those relationships that are now 35 years, and that's what you see a lot at the high school level. Those relationships you made that 1 year, you're liable to keep. You're liable to be in part of their weddings when they get married, maybe 5, 6, 7 years down the road, and that's what's really neat and special about high school sports.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What was the biggest challenge, though, getting through? You're working with grown men in the Yankees organization. But getting through to that 15, 16-year-old, what was the biggest challenge that you saw as a high school coach?
Accountability and what's important. And it doesn't have to be baseball. We can talk about life here, but teaching them that there needs to be structure, that you need to be accountable on or off the field, and in the decisions that you make, and then own up, whether it's a bad decision or a good decision, learn from it and move on. And we struggled with the accountability part on and off the field. So that was definitely a struggle.
Now, similar to that first call you got from the Yankees organization to join them as a player, it happens again to ask you to join as a coach. Mm-hmm. It kind of came out of the blue.
It did.
So tell us how you got that call, and I know you and your wife talked about it. You thought you waited. You got a young family you're starting. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I don't want to get too long into the stories, but my wife and I were out walking on New Year's Day of 2017, and I was like, I think I want to try to get back into the pro game. I want a little bit more. I want to be a little bit more stimulated on the baseball side of it. And I kid you not, it was about 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from one of my catching coaches back when I was in high A and said, hey, your name came up in this position.
Had you reached out to anybody in the Yankees organization prior to that?
No, other than, with him, the hey, happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas text message every year. That was about the extent of it. But yeah, I hadn't reached out to him, so it really was a surprise and very, very ironic after the conversation my wife and I had.
And now you're the catching coach in the Yankees organization. Won't be long, you'll be headed to spring training. That's still down in the Tampa area?
Tampa.
Yeah. Now, with your wife, I know you live in Iowa now, which will be pretty cold when spring training rolls around. Has your wife already planted that seed that she's going to go to Tampa with you, or does she stay back with the kids?
So she'll stay back with the kids, but she's already got a couple trips and plane tickets bought, so they come down a couple different times throughout spring training and then our extended program, and then usually are with me for about a month and a half during the season when we get into our short season, where I've been the last couple of years.
You mentioned, Tyson, before we started recording, that there's like approximately 40 catchers in the Yankees organization, right. So you have a chance to work with all 40 of those athletes at spring training? Yeah, so roughly probably 32 to 35. So we got guys at the big league camp, and then we've got guys that are in the Dominican Republic that we won't bring up until our spring training ends. But yeah, so it gets pretty crowded and controlled chaos is like what we like to say. As a player, what was spring training like for you? Oh, it was it was tough, man. We've really got better at the process with the catchers. But when I was going through, it was catch bullpens straight through 4, 5, 6 in a row. Then try to do all the team defenses, and then we had to figure out how to hit at the end of the day when you can barely lift your legs. So our process has got a lot better now, but that's what it was like for me. It was tough, long days. When did it hit you that you wanted to stay in the game and coach when your playing days were over? Did you always know that, or did you consider other job options after you were done playing with the Yankees? Knew right away. That's what I wanted to do. So when I was in my second year of playing, I had a pretty good year. And then that following year when I got hurt and realized that, those goals were going to be very, very hard to achieve, I wanted to stay in the game as long as possible to learn and learn how to kind of coach. And so I knew pretty quick that's what I wanted to do. For the developing players out there, ages mainly 12 to 16, but even the junior, seniors in high school that are still wanting to play at the college level, I know you can't bottle this up in one little can, but what would you impart on them if they want to play at the college level? What do they need to do? Is there any 1, 2, 3 things that they should focus on to get to that next level? Yeah, for sure. Network. I know you're never too young. Reach out to college coaches yourself. Don't have your parents do it, okay? Get onto social media, get onto emails, but send that yourself, and it'll show accountability, it'll show responsibility, it'll show maturity. So if you're looking at that, do that yourself. Be a good person and play the game hard. I know those are pretty blanket statements, but if you do those 3 things, a lot of colleges want character guys. And if you want to play in college, there is a college out there for you. NAIA, D3, D2, Division I. The JUCOs have Division I's, Division II's, Division III's. There's so many avenues for you to play. So don't think that you have to be a D1 guy. There's plenty of guys that I played with that were junior college guys that made it in the pros, or even D3. I played with a pitcher up into AA with us. I was in the D3 pitcher. So there's many avenues. Go get them. Yeah, what we find is a lot of times as a senior in high school, freshman in college, there's still 20, 30 pounds of muscle to gain, or maybe there's still some late growth spurts, 1, 2, 3 inches of growth. And by the time I heard the other day, Strasburg, when he was a freshman in college, was throwing like 82, 83. By the time he was a senior, he was throwing 93, 94. And of course, we've all heard of Steven Strasburg now.
Yeah, I heard he was just like a very, very small individual when he first got there.
I think he got one offer coming out of high school. So great message right there. Now, what's your schedule like right now as you prepare for spring training? You got a lot of administrative stuff going on, or is it kind of idle time before you get to the facility?
Calm before the storm. We're getting geared up for spring training, and I don't have to necessarily worry about the planning side of it. I get to show up and coach, which is fantastic. So for me, after the season, we did some things, instructs and Arizona Fall League, and once I was done, slid back home, been hanging out, giving lessons, doing some private stuff, and now here in about a month, it'll be time to rock and roll.
Now, while you were playing and/or coaching, did you use many analytics to help improve your own game or help as a coach at the high school or now professional level?
So it was on the catching side of it, starting to get into it when I was had just got done playing. Right toward the end of it, we started talking about receiving numbers and gaining strikes and going that route. But it wasn't as big of a deal as it is now. And there's a place for it. I think that the analytics in the game, coupled with the human element of being able to teach it, shows how far we've come in the game and how technology can work within the game. But if we're going 100% solely just based on technology, I think we miss the human element. But if we're not acknowledging the awesome options we have in technology, then we're not doing our players a service as well.
I would assume the Yankees organization probably have about every tool imaginable, every platform, then y'all can pick and choose.
We've got a few.
What works best for you. I know you can't share those here on the air. But, hey, talk to me a little bit about the tools you used to prepare for practice and game day. Were there any differences in how you went about business, as a high school coach, practice versus game day, any mindset?
For our high school guys, trying to get them into a routine, and then so they know the routine of what a pregame should look like, and then being able to allow them ownership and taking that into it, and having our seniors or having our leaders of the team go ahead and be the ones to lead that, to take us through stretching, to take us through our pregame warm-ups, to take us through our pregame routines of ground balls and some cage work. So I really enjoyed setting that and then creating the bar and showing them where it needs to be, and then putting the onus on our guys to make sure that they reach that.
Now, being a lifelong learner and a former history teacher, I got to ask you, what are you currently reading right now?
You're going to laugh. A lot of children's books, right? Cat in the Hat. Catching the Moon is a really good baseball one out there. If you got any young parents, Catching the Moon is about a young lady trying to get into baseball. But, I probably don't do as much reading unless it's on Twitter than I should. But I like reading bedtime stories.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Coach Tyson Blaser with the New York Yankees, thanks so much for joining me here on Behind the Dish.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Awesome. I'm glad you reached out.
I'll be following your career. Good luck to you here with the Yankees, and we'll stay in touch.
Definitely.
Hey everybody, my name is Kyle and I'm the producer for Behind the Dish with John Piper. We put a lot of effort in here to bring you the topics and guests that we think are relevant to the sport of baseball and to your everyday life. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.